Hi, I'm Rani Moorthy. I'm Artistic Director of Rasa Productions, based here in Manchester. We've been here for 14 years, regularly funded company, and toured nationally and internationally. I'm Sri Lankan Tamil, grew up in Malaysia, came to live here in the late 90s, and having been displaced so many times and being an immigrant many times over, I'm very interested in migrant culture and how in which people from minority communities negotiate what it means to live in the UK and to look at the world globally as well. So I started to write really by default. I had a very different career in Asia, as in we were part of a kind of pioneering group of people who were writing for English language theatre, but in our own terms. And in a way, I've kind of extended that in my work here. So everything I do is based on the personal and the political, but based on how I observe what's going on in life in the UK. Husari now is our 11th production, and the aim is to tour it nationally, hopefully internationally. It's part of a trilogy of plays. So this started as a one-woman show because I wanted to see the sari from a woman's point of view, obviously, but the sari is a very complicated garment for a lot of us who don't celebrate it in the way it is, I suppose, in the movies, in Bollywood. It has thousands of years of history, and with that comes a lot of patriarchy, ritual, and Hindu iconography with it. So I wanted to examine it. When I first came to live in Manchester, and when you're an immigrant, you are completely, in a way, you romanticize your culture. And so for me, anything that was attached to my mother, my aunties, was glimpses of women in traditional dress, in my case, the sari. So walking down Russia, it used to give me great pleasure to see a flicker of color coming out of a winter coat. And I loved that because it kind of was my connection to my past. And slowly I observed that there were fewer and fewer instances of first-generation women wearing the sari in public. So the idea of the public space no longer being an arena for the sari, and it's gone into the closet, as it were, into the area of the private, the personal, the community, the communal, the traditional, is an interesting phenomena, and so I wanted to look at that. I wanted to look at what happens in the diaspora when people inherit saris but don't know what to do with them. I mean, can you recycle saris? If you don't have daughters, what happens to the saris? So is there a graveyard of saris that just get, that have all these memories and stories attached to them that get buried somewhere? So I was interested in that. I was interested in what a sari means to men, for example, because the second part of the trilogy, it made me realize that men who sell the saris, who also dictate the tastes of saris, men designers, they are the ones who dictate whether weaving communities. In this play, I play a scene entirely in Tamil because this woman I wanted to portray was from a weaving community. They are itinerant, they are very, very fragile communities. And handloom versus machine is a big question in terms to do with sari. So I address the sari in a very political way, I suppose, and it's also about contemporary feminine politics to do with does the sari accord you more virtue, the idea of the exotic, the idea of the male gaze, the idea of the colonial gaze. So these are real questions that I was grappling with. Absolutely. I wore the sari at the age of 11. It was a coming of age ritual, so when a woman starts to menstruate, you can't even say the word sometimes in public, because as if it doesn't happen. But it does, and it's a very secret world where there is a ceremony that I went through where the first time you wore sari, nothing to do with this romantic, wonderful idea of glitz and bling. It's to do with really tradition, itchy saris, uncomfortable in so many ways, not just physically, but the idea psychologically of people now looking at you like you're a woman. And this idea of entering womanhood in a very public way, being bathed in milk, being given gold, almost like you're a prize, precious, but the double-edged sword is that you're also kind of prize to be offered to the public, and you're ready for marriage. And that stayed with me quite a long time. So it isn't a very comfortable situation. I think a lot of women probably don't even question that, and a lot of men don't even question that, because it's just a garment. And I love people to come and see the show in their saris, even men and women who don't, and some men do wear saris, and men and women who have never, thought about it. Because even if you have worn a bikini and are very comfortable with your body, the sari has a way of making you feel incredibly liberated, at the same time exposed. And it comes from a very traditional idea that the navel has to be seen. The navel is the source of life. And if you go to any Hindu temples and you see near naked figures with a strip of cloth, which is what the sari means, you're already, entering into a world of sexuality, of addressing quite uncomfortable, maybe issues for some people, issues of body consciousness, or bodiness, or body. Being a larger woman, I've always been liberated by sari, because there's no one size. It's one size fits all. Also, you can never be, as the line from the play says, you can never be mutton dressed as lamb, because grandmothers have their navels showing. It's one of those, and it also took me into the area of transgender, because there are festivals in India, in the subcontinent, where the men wear saris, Hindu priests wear saris, to identify with the female energy, with the goddess. And it's a way of worshipping the goddess, and it's not seen as anything transgressive. It is seen as something incredibly celebratory. So it approaches a lot of issues of caste and status, because there are women who can only wear the silk sari, and there are women who are of low caste who may not be able to afford it, but also are conditioned to think that there are certain saris that doesn't apply to them. So there are 80 different kinds of drape, for example. So there's a kind of real idea of almost emasculating a woman. So the Brahmin sari, the Brahmins are the upper caste, very into Hindu virtue. And the way in which the Brahmins drape the sari, it's not even just 6 yards, it's 9 yards. And if you go on YouTube, just have a look, it'll give you a bit of a laugh, how the sari is draped, because it's almost like a man. You bring the pallu between the thighs, between the legs, to almost hide your femininity. So, for everybody who thinks you know the sari and it's all about feminine beauty and all of those things, that's also the other side, the underbelly of what the sari means. I also talk about a very uncomfortable issue, something I need to talk about, which is the Sri Lankan Civil War. And so there's one scene, and I've very kindly got Callum McRae, who did the Killing Fields of Sri Lanka, Channel 4 documentary, and the No Fire Zone. He has given me permission to use footage from that documentary to accompany a scene that I do in the play, where a young woman is giving birth in the war zone, and it's a must watch, really, for people who probably don't think of the sari in terms of what it means to some people, because if that's the only thing you have, memory of your family, your culture, your DNA, your cultural DNA, everything encapsulated in a piece of cloth, then it's a big lesson, I suppose, for those of us who don't know what it means to have to run away from home, especially in these terrible times when people are thinking, oh, well, yeah, let's not deal with the refugees and immigrants, because look what they do to wherever they go. And I think it's always nice to flip and watch what it means to someone else who probably doesn't think of the sari as a thing of just hero and heroine running in slow motion across pet. Everyone is familiar with it, because my culture is human. What irritates me is the details of one's culture may be different, but we all want the same things in life. We want love, we want to be validated, we want a safe home, we want our ability to continue doing what we love. I think these are common ground. I use the sari as a metaphor. A lot of people think that we who are of color are somehow different, you know, that we are here to celebrate difference. And so if you write a piece about sari, or we'll come and see some nice, lovely, colourful, you know, bits of other people's lives and then go away thinking it's nothing to do with me. So it always irritates me when people single you out as a kind of, having lived in so many different countries and knowing, yes, you don't have to pound it over my head that I am different, but that difference is really only in somebody's opinion and attitude, because it's safer for them to think of me as different. I think the most controversial thing that any writer can do is to allow people into this experience, having them access it, but then leave thinking they've learned something about themselves.